where decisions are less about speed and more about judgment, about accountability, and long term resilience. Boards should think about governance beyond compliance and how emerging forces like AI, data, and systematic risk are changing what we now expect from leaders and especially independent directors. So think of this episode as a boardroom conversation. Hello everyone, welcome to Discuss with Deepak. If this is your first time here, I'm your host Deepak Jain. I work closely with boards, CXOs, and senior leadership teams to solve their AI adoption challenges, helping them shape clear AI roadmaps and leadership strategies so that every AI investment become deliberate, a strategic decision, and not just experimental bets. And this podcast is my way of bringing those boardroom conversations while taking a pause and finding the value that drives these modern organizations. Here, we are not here to talk about trends just for the sake of trends, but to explore how leaders actually think, decide, and evolve especially when the stakes are high. So today's episode is particularly interesting because we are going to talk about leadership where it truly gets tested in financial services. And my guest has spent a significant part of his career across banking, credit risk, and business development, including deep experience into consumer finance, MSME lending, and mortgage-less businesses, especially in semi-urban and rural markets. He is also a certified independent director and currently working closely with boards where decisions are less about speed and more about judgment, about accountability, and long-term resilience. This conversation is not about resumes or titles. It's about how leadership evolves when you sit closer to risk than applause. How boards should think about governance beyond compliance and how emerging forces like AI, data, and systematic risk are changing what we now expect from leaders and especially independent directors. So think of this episode as a boardroom conversation that has been made accessible to you. Let's get into it. Hello Pankaj, welcome to the show.
Hi, Deepak ji, and it's very good to see you and introduce myself to your organization and your board so that I can work more closely with people around and people who need a person who can help them in a good board. I have
Thank you.
spent most of my career in BFSI working across credit risk and business development. My work hasn't always been visible, but it's been about helping institutions grow thoroughly without losing sight of risk, governance, and long term trust.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this intro about yourself. As you have mentioned, you have worked across credit risk and business development in BFSI. So
Yeah.
I want to know if you look back at your journey, which phase of your career do you think you have shaped the leadership most?
The credit and risk part of my career is the most important part of my career because that made me learn a lot about banking and all the other aspects of the industry.
So you have worked across credit risk and business development in BFSI. These
Yeah.
are the roles that shape outcome quietly but decisively. So when you look back, what part of that journey has shaped your leadership thinking the most?
Definitely, credit and risk part of my experience was the most important part because during that I was able to understand the banking and the industry from deep.
In your career, what did you believe leadership was, and how did that belief change over the all these years?
Like what I see is credit and risk without question is one of the most important part of the experience which I have generated in last 25 years. And early in my career, I thought leadership meant being decisive and having answers.
Okay.
But over the time, I realized it's more about creating clarity, asking the right questions, and sometimes having the discipline of to pause.
Okay, fair point. So, BFSI leaders usually operate under very constant pressure. Okay, BFSI is a very regulated industry. Okay,
Yeah.
so whether it's regulation, growth opportunities, asset quality, or having the public trust, most of all. So,
Yeah.
what differentiates the leaders, especially the leaders from the BFSI industry, who stay grounded from those who become reactive?
The grounded ones know how to tune out noise. They respect date but don't get hypnotized by it. They stay anchored to principles, especially when the pressure is highest.
Okay. And if we talk about your experience, so where do senior leaders usually judge the reality that is associated with incentives, data, or human behavior?
What happens is that we tend to assume people behave rationally because our systems are rational, but incentives, fear, and personal risk influence decisions far more than dashboard suggests.
Okay. And in that case, how do effective leaders create the accountability, especially in terms of credit and risk teams, without having that fear or
It is by explaining why decision matter, not just what decisions are taken. When people feel ownership, accountability becomes natural. Fear only creates silence.
Okay. And credit decisions that are usually happen across the boards. What
Yeah.
are the ultimate judgment calls? Let me rephrase it. What separates a sound judgment from a technically correct one?
Sound judgments looks beyond policy, I think.
Okay.
It asks what behavior will this decision encourage tomorrow, not just whether it filed today's framework. That is the most important part.
Okay. Now, in banking industries, institutions usually have customer base across different markets, whether it's urban, semi-urban, or rural markets. While the corporate headquarters of all these, whether it's banking or any fintech company, their headquarters are usually in the metro cities, right? So, what do you think are the risks that are usually underestimated by these leadership teams being in the metro and operating across, different markets?
Actually, while sitting in the metro or a big city, they definitely don't understand the ground reality of the market. So that is the most important part. So they have to understand the villages, the small cities where the real customer is.
Okay. And we talk about the growth targets and portfolio health because that's what us often pull in opposite directions. So
Yeah.
from the leaders, what do strong leaders get right here that average leaders usually miss?
They don't treat risk as a brake on growth. They treat it as a steering mechanism. That mindset changes everything.
Okay. And as a certified independent director, what is the most misunderstood aspect of this role?
I think people think independence means resistance, but it is not resistance actually. It means independence of thoughts and helping improve decisions, not blocking them. That is the most important part.
Okay. So, from your board experience, where do boards unintentionally, I'm not saying intentionally, but unintentionally fall short most often?
Boards often have plenty of data, but the problem is not always enough insight into where changing on the ground or what's coming next. That is the most important part. So the most important part is that they have to understand what is coming up, what is changing.
Okay. And is it the lack of challenge or the context or the courage to think in a different direction? Thing else.
I think they have to look every aspect of the company. That is the most important thing, because they look one thing and they miss the other thing, then the complete problem is there.
Okay. Now, what should be the this independent directors like? How should their independent directors challenge management? I'm not talking about being a passive observers.
They must look the risk holistically manner,
Okay.
like reputational risk, systematic risk, and financial risk is the most important thing.
Okay.
So, and that what behavior are not insensitive, quietly encouraging. So that is the most important thing.
So there are two kinds of boards: compliance focused
Yeah,
board versus the governance effective board. So,
yeah.
in your view, what is the difference between the two?
A governance effective board is are we prepared, whereas the compliance focused board is are we covered. So that is the difference between both the boards.
Okay. And the risks that are today's risk extends beyond finance, right?
Yeah,
So this can include operational risks, reputational, digital. You
yeah,
mentioned all these
yeah,
risks, right?
yeah.
Boards truly equipped with to see these risks holistically?
They have to understand the financial risk as well as the digital, reputational, and systematic risk. And these risks still live in separate conversations. So they have to understand this.
We have just talked about the risks, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now, what do you think is the most important risk related questions boards should be asking, but they often don't?
I think the risk questions board asked most are we not seeing because of how we vote and what behaviors are incentive quality encouraging. That is the most important thing.
Okay. And how should boards balance the short term performance pressure with the long term institutional resilience?
Boards must ring fence long term priorities so they don't get renegotiated every quarter. That is the most important thing.
See, whether it's artificial intelligence or the analytics, these are increasingly, influencing the credit and risk decisions. But from a board perspective, what do you think this worries the most?
Moment judgment becomes outsourced, the accountability becomes blurred. That is the most important thing. So judgment has to be insourced so that it is not getting blurred. People are able to see the problems clearly.
Okay. And as AI starts shaping the recommendations and
Yeah.
outcomes, how should boards think about this accountability, especially when the decisions are going in the wrong direction?
It has to stay with the humans, not the model or vendors, the institutions and leadership. That is the most important thing. I think that is should be kept with humans only.
Okay. Do you see any sort of gap, between how fast AI is being adopted versus how slowly governance frameworks are evolving?
Like if you see it, technology is moving exponentially, but governance is still moving step by step. So that is the most important thing that not only the directors, the independent directors, but the company also keep in mind.
And why governance is moving that slow? Is there any particular reason you see?
That is because technology is technical driven, but governance is it depends on the people, it depends on papers, it depends on a lot of other things. So it is not moving that fast.
And with these tight regulations, actually the shifting the behavior and all this rising exposure to digital technologies, social media or AI, I think in 25, I have not seen any technology that has emerged in India so fast that Chat GPT and other GPT tools have emerged in India, especially in 25. So this is the kind of digital exposure I'm talking about. And in the BFSI industry, what are the current trends that deserves more attention right now from the boards?
The board should focus on digital concentration risk. That is the most important thing because you can convert everything digitally, but the concentration of the risk is most important thing that they have to look after. So that is the most important thing.
Okay. And what is leadership capability that will become a non-negotiable in BFSI over the next decade?
Is judgment under uncertainty is the most important thing because everything is uncertain.
Right. And I think that is the reason I've been doing a master class where I talk about, how leaders should navigate AI and leadership in this age of uncertainty.
That is most important thing
Yeah.
because judgment under uncertainty is the challenge, and that challenge has to be overcome by the people.
Right. And with this I think expectations from independent directors also get, see a spike as well.
Yeah.
So, what will define that effectiveness at board level in forward, if we talk about?
The most important thing is the connect is ability to connect the strategy, risk, technology, and ethical into one coherent line. That is the most important thing. So that question has to be answered by the board and the executives.
Okay. Now, I had some couple of questions that you have answered very, decisively and precisely. But this time, I've experimented something new. I've
Yeah.
tried to, introduce a rapid fire kind of round
Okay.
where I will ask you something and you have to answer in, one word. It's like a rapid
Okay.
fire.
Okay. Definitely.
So let's start.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence, you can put in amplifier is the correct answer.
Okay. Credit risk,
Credit risk, discipline,
financial crisis.
memory.
Okay. Which memory do you recall when I talk about financial crisis? Any particular crisis, think of?
There are a lot of crises financially. Lot of companies have gone bad in last years and so. You can the company Hyderabad company. I don't remember the name. That went wrong.
Okay. Governance,
It is completely stewardship,
ethics,
foundation,
leadership,
judgment, totally judgment,
success.
sustainability.
Now, suppose you have to build one habit. What would it be?
I have to build a habit.
Yeah.
I would say I would change the habit of over engagement.
With this rapid fire, we are almost at the end of our today's show. But before we close, I would wrap up with some of the questions. So, what is your approach to
Work life balance for me is in terms of alignment and not balance.
Okay. And what advice would you give to professionals who are preparing for their next board level roles?
I think it is focus on sharpening judgment before seeking the seat.
Okay. And what is your prediction for year 2026 in the context of governance and AI?
Boards will be accountable for AI decisions even if they don't fully understand them yet.
Over the next decade, what leadership capability will become a non-negotiable in BFSI? So, how do you see the expectations from independent directors changing in next 5 to 7 years?
They'll be expected to offer foresight. That is the most important thing, not just oversight.
Okay.
They have to look 5 years ahead of the time.
And what should boards unlearn to remain effective in this, especially this tech driven financial ecosystem?
The idea that past success guarantees future relevance.
Okay. With this, I think we are now at the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for your valuable time and for sharing your insights, your experience with my audience.
Thanks a lot for inviting me to talking about boards and all these things. And it's my pleasure.
Sure, sure. So to everyone who watched us and stayed with us until here, I would like to thank you all for showing your appreciations. And I would love to know what is your perspective. What is one insight? If I talk about, I need two things from you. What are your perspectives on how AI and governance is going to be changed over the next 5 to 7 years? Second, I want to know from you what is one insight you took from this entire conversation, the insight that you can carry with you as a learning and can apply in your professional work life. So, with this note, thank you, Pankaj, and thank you to everyone. Keep watching and please like, comment, and share this podcast with your colleagues. And if you have not clicked that bell icon, please click on that so that every time a new video, new podcast is published, you get the notification right into your inbox. Thank you.